Okay, so I've got these shamrocks or clubs from the Suits of Cards, and I'm gonna make a little pendant for each one of these different sizes. And when I'm working with this flat sheet, it's usually pretty thick to start with what I'm working on. So on this larger piece, I may leave it pretty close to how thick it is to start, because I'm going to put some dimension to the shape of this. It's not just going to be a cutout that's flat and cast, but I'm going to try and add some dimensionality to the interior of this and make it feel like it's in relief. So with this bigger piece, the thickness of this, it really is probably okay because of that dimension stuff. But with this smaller piece, I'm going to want to thin this sheet out before I put this on with rubber cement and start carving it out. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off just like a little square of this that this will go to, but I'm not going to glue that on yet. So I'm going to mark it real quick with my saw. I'm just going to mark it like this. Just give me my approximate size. And then I'll go this way to mark it. But I don't really need to cut that side yet. So, and I've got this skip tooth saw blade on here. You should have a skip tooth saw blade already, know what it is. And I'm just going to go ahead and cut right across here with my skip tooth. Now, that's one of the ways to cut these if you want to go and cut out. Alternatively, you can score and snap this. So I'm going to take this line here and put a nice score line in it, but I'm not going to cut all the way through. And then I can just break on an edge, or I can try at least. And it should break pretty close. It wasn't perfect, but because I'm just rough cutting out before I put my piece on, that doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. So I think I'm using this side anyway. So I've got it kind of rough cut to the right size, but this is still way too thick. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my file and start filing this down before I even start. This is the file that I think you guys have. It's got a coarse side and a less coarse side. Ideally, you could use an even bigger file, something like this. But since I'm working with you guys, use the tools you have, I'm going to go ahead and use this file here. And this might take a little while to file this down to start, because we want to really take a lot off this. It's way too thick. Now there's a cool machine that we actually have here in the studio that is like a little rotary tool machine that you can set and just kind of work this thing around and set it to the depth you want and thin this out. But since we're all working at home, we'll just do it the old-fashioned way and hand file this down to get it thin enough before we start. We wouldn't want to start this really thick and then try to thin this out after we cut our piece, because we'll end up messing up our piece. So if we thin it out here like this, it's going to save us some trouble. Oops. Let's see how much progress I've made. Not much. About a millimeter. So I'm just going to keep going. And you'll see I keep rotating the direction I'm filing from so that I get a nice even file across the whole thing. I get it nice and equally the same thickness across it all the way. If I just file in one spot and then go to another spot, I'll end up getting it all wavy or having it tapered off in a way that we're not looking for. And you'll notice underneath my bench pen here, I've got this catch drawer. If you're working at home, I know you don't have a catch drawer, set up a garbage can or something directly below where you're filing, because these filings go everywhere and they're kind of a pain to clean up. It's best to catch them first. In the jewelry studio, they're really slippery on the floor, so if you've got a smooth floor where you're working and you have these filings on it, it's super slippery. So be careful of that. Thinner. So all of that filing, and I've made it this far. See, I got a ways to go. So I'll finish filing this down to the thickness, and then I'll come back to the next thing.